As part of our 150th celebration this year, it's our pleasure to welcome back former Invermay Primary School Principal John Mooney. John was principal here from 1970 until 1973, and it's fantastic that you've made the time to come up and visit us today from Melbourne, John. John, tell us about your first connection with Invermay Primary School.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here today. It's quite significant that for me, it's like coming back home because I was principal here. It was called headmaster then. Principal here in 1973 for the 100th birthday, and here I am 50 years later, back another half a century later, to be back here for the 150th, and it's really makes time is, it's got nothing to do. Albert Einstein, the physicist, said time doesn't exist. The past, present and future, it's all one, and time is a stubborn illusion. Anyway, so when I came here, I didn't have to go for an interview. It was the very first job that I applied for, and you could only get the jobs then if you were senior enough. And even though I was only young, I was 21 when I came here. I was so pleased when I was able to get a job closer to where I grew up in Ballarat North. And that was the reason why I came here. And I knew a lot about the White Swan, and I knew a lot about Invermay, and I knew a lot of people in Invermay. And I can't tell you how excited I was when that letter came, and it was a letter to say that you have been appointed, please report for duty. And I still got it. I've got my appointment notice, which I will forward onto the school.
Did you get much notice? As in, was this December to begin the following year?
Yes, it was in, because I was able to apply for a job, I think it was November, late November, when I knew that I was having to change.
Our interviews of famous Invermay Primary School staff and students of years gone by. It's our pleasure today to welcome Robin Ware, Education Support from the 1990s. Welcome back to Invermay, Robin.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Now, Robin, can you recall and share with us your first introduction to Invermay Primary School? How did you come to be at Invermay?
Well, I applied for a position, and I sent my resume to Alka, and then I think Alka might have called me. I don't think it was a letter. I think she rang me, and we made a time, and I came, and she showed me around the school, and I told her all of the things that I could do, and then she said something about when can you start, and I said, that's wonderful, but don't you need to check with your boss? And she said, I am the boss. So that set us off on a good start, and we've had a lot of fun ever since. So I was lucky enough to be told that day that I had the
What
position.
year was that you started?
I was 97 or 96. I just can't quite remember now. No, it could have been early 96. Yeah, 96, definitely.
Continuing our preparations for our 150th anniversary of Invermay Primary School, it's our pleasure to welcome back to Invermay Primary teacher and principal from the 1980s and 1990s, Alka Gunn. Alka, thanks so much for coming back and joining us and sharing some of your beautiful memories from your 16 or 17 years at Invermay Primary School. Alka, what was your first connection with Invermay Primary?
Well, I was teaching at Eureka Street with Ian Martin, and Ian encouraged me to apply here. And on a moment when I was having a bad day with one of my students, I decided to apply, and not thinking I'd get the position. And then when I did get it, I cried for 2 weeks. And then when I got here, my very first day of arriving at this school, I was shown my classroom. The classroom had just been located to the school and joined onto the building. There was no door on the classroom, no cupboard fronts on the classroom, no furniture, and no resources, no reading books. And the principal at the time, John Bolton, said, Elka, over there under the portable you'll find some old tables and chairs. You'll need to wash them up and get them organised for your class, which was starting the next day. So I had nothing in that room. So my first day at Invermay was spent cleaning tables that had lots of dust on them, killing redbacks, and setting up the classroom.
Welcome, and in this episode of Invermay Past and Present, we welcome back Trish Thwaites. First attending in 1954, still living locally, still involved in more recent years as a classroom volunteer in our prep room. Welcome back to Invermay Primary, Trish.
Thank you.
Trish, tell us about your family's first connections to our school.
Well, we moved to the district, I think about 5 years before I started school. And I don't know whether we had prep then, so it was probably grade 1. And I was the first to come to school. I have one sister, Bev, who's 18 months younger than me, and she came to school here as well. And yeah, so my parents were involved in the school, in the school committees, my father and my mother with the Mothers Club, I guess. And so it was a very small school. The district was mostly rural, and there were just a few families around the district at the time.
What did the classrooms look like?
When I first started, the classroom was a big timber building. It had a porch on it, and it had 2 classrooms, or you might as well say it was a hall and a classroom. And probably in 1962, 63, that school was lifted up, the building was lifted up and was taken away. It was placed over the far side between here and the church. And that became the hall for a little while. What was put in there was what we call a portable, just a 1-room classroom. That was done in about 1963, and most of the ones in there had left since then. So the numbers were down a little bit, but we're all in the 1 room.
Hey, Mr. Mooney, what did the classrooms look like?
When I walked here, there was just one single box classroom, and you walked in the front door, kids hung their bags on the corridor, and there was a door ahead of you, and that was the only part I had for any paper or art supplies or anything. And then you walked into one classroom, and I taught all the 7 classes by myself with no help. And then when we went over to 31 students, we got another teacher, and her name was Margaret Smith, and she taught prep 1 and 2, and I taught grade 3, 4, 5 and 6. But when I came here, there was only the one classroom, the shelter shed out yonder, which you've still got, which had been reclad, and an old area at the back where we used to use for storage things of art. And that's all we had. And the water tanks, we had tap where we didn't have mains water, and the kids that we had our water in the water tanks at the back of the one classroom.
And what did the classroom setup and structure look like then, do you recall? How many classrooms?
2 classrooms, and that was all. A staff room and a little tiny office, which is just a cupboard, just a little room. And outside toilets, as I remember when I first came. We didn't have the hall wasn't here, and just really playground and yard. During the time here, the new playground was put out the front, but other than that, there wasn't very, very much here. Just, the 2 staff, prep 1, 2, 1 room, and 3, 4, 5, 6, the other room.
Any other ed support? No other ed support at that time? There
was a couple of teachers that came in, but I'm not sure if they did in the beginning. We had French, Pam Coughlin, she came, but I don't know if that was that right in the very beginning?
No.
And then we had a reading support teacher, she came later, just for 1 or 2 days, and not for the whole day, just for a few hours.
And you were the only integration aide at that time?
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the students you taught or any of the other staff that were in the school?
Yes, I do. The people here were John Bolton, principal, Bruce Harris, the grade 3, 4 teacher. John taught grade 5, 6, Bruce taught grade 3, 4. Del Surridge, grade 2, and me. And Del and I became really, really good friends. And sadly, Del's no longer with us. She died in, I think it was 1997 or 1996. Yeah, so, but it was good fun working here.
What did the classrooms look like when you were back? Oh gosh, it was a very lovely little school. It was just a small school and it was one classroom and we were all in the classroom and we had little wooden desks and we all had our own desk that we would sit at. And I remember in the winter there was like a little heater. It was probably a briquette or something at the time, and like you have them now, they come out from the wall and it was very warm because often it would snow back then. We don't have the climates warm so much, so we would often be quite cold and we'd have that little heater to warm up the room in the classroom.
You'd want a desk near the heater, eh? To be the best desk in the room.
How many students and staff were here during your time at Invermay?
I think I went through a few teachers. That there would have been the amount of kids there in the 1960s. It declined after that. I reckon probably in about 63, 64 there might have been one dual grade. Possibly 8 or 9 all up in the school. And if I can refer to this, because I did make a couple of notes of who the teachers were in my day. And when I went to Invermay here, as I said, we had a teacher named Billy Cups. We had a Mr. Dooley. We had a Mr. Phelan. These are in different years, you know, not all together. These are different years. I had a Mr. Lumsden, and I had a Mr. Batten, and my final 2 years here, I had a Mr. Parnell.
Mr. Parnell called over and said g'day to me here about 5 years ago. He was actually at a wake over the road at the Invermay Bowls Club, and he just had an inkling to call over and shake hands and say, I used to have your job here back in the day.
And you know who's the wake it would have been? Would have been your father's, Harry's.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, because he called up to see us at the wake, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so... But they're the teachers I've had. Well, I said earlier, I'd come to school here for 7 years because I'd be kept down for a year because I would have been too young to go to high school, or tech school we called it. So 6 teachers over that 7 years is not a bad effort, I don't think. But the school itself in those days, I think they just kept advertising like, you know, it was sort of like a step up promotion for teachers back then to go to the schools they wanted to go out to Invermay. So I think Mr. Parnell was probably the longest that I can remember here. So yeah.
So a small school would have been just that stepping stone from being a teacher, maybe in a larger school in Ballarat or Melbourne, to come and have a go at being a principal just in a small school. So
I had Mr. Buchanan and I had Mr. Manus. But Mr. Manus, he only had one arm. Yeah, but he was a handsome looking man though.
I wonder if he'd suffered an injury in the war or just an accident as a child. Or, you know.
Really? What did the school uniforms look like?
There was no school uniform when I was here, and there was no competition between people who wanted to dress in better clothes or people who felt they didn't look as good as Jimmy Smith, who was all dressed up or had new brown leather shoes. But we had no uniform per se in those days that I can recall. We had, we did have a tartan bibs that when we went to sporting events, which had been used, and they were part of the proud history of the school. And but there was no real uniform. Sun hats we were encouraging, but not.
What did the school uniforms look like then too?
They were green. They were just green, and we had shorts, track pants, wind cheater, and a t-shirt. Practical, sensible, much the same as what you've got now too, but just a different colour, bottle green.
What did your school uniforms look like?
Well, I don't think we had any to start off with because everyone just wore what they wanted to wear. But then when we started working on the logo, which you still have on your uniforms, we then decided to get a uniform, and so we had a bottle green wind cheater, and so the colours were bottle green and white, and I think, you know, they were still used until about 10 years ago. Yeah. And actually, when I left the school, I actually bought myself a couple of wind cheaters, so I had my own uniform as a remembrance. But then our next door neighbours moved in, and I kindly gave.
What did the school uniforms look like?
We didn't have a uniform. We just come to school in our, as we called them, ordinary clothes.
The students you taught or any of the other staff that were in the school?
Yes, I do. The people here were John Bolton, principal, Bruce Harris, the grade 3-4 teacher. John taught grade 5-6, Bruce taught grade 3-4, Del Surridge, grade 2, and me. And Del and I became really, really good friends. And sadly, Del's no longer with us. She died in, I think it was 1997 or 1996. Yeah, so, but it was good fun working here.
Did you have any school uniforms, and if you did, what did they look like?
No, there was no school uniform when I went to school. I had to wear shorts right up to I got the big boys' pants. And that was probably when I was in grade 4. And the shorts, yeah, they were definitely not the thing when you couldn't remember your times tables or your spelling. Big wooden ruler across the back of the legs. It used to help you remember a bit.
Against other schools in athletics.
Well, the funny thing about Invermay, it was in the Maryborough Inspectorate. We weren't part of the Ballarat schools. Now, that was a bit of a complication because I wanted to be part of all the Ballarat schools too. And then all our sporting events were with Bungaree and the Bungaree Shire, of which this was part. We had the Ballarat City Council, we had the Bungaree Shire. So we used to be part of the Bungaree schools, the government schools and Catholic schools. We all competed together, and we had once a year a big sporting event, and that's the thing that our students used to train for, and I wanted to make sure everybody was in the team, that everybody got to go. And there's a photograph around to show the year that we won the shield for the highest number of points scored, and to say that our kids were proud, wow, they were on a high for a long time, that they could do something that they never dreamed that they could do. And the question is, why not? Why not? And they showed it, that they did it. And some broke records that have been stood for a long time. What is a record? Well, a record is, how high someone jumps.
Do you recall the kids competing against other schools in any activities, sporting or spelling or anything like that? Do you remember taking kids off on excursions?
We used to go to a sports day at the Dean Newland Oval, and we were part of, if I can remember correctly, the Seven Hills Cluster.
That's correct, yeah.
And are you still part of that? It doesn't exist?
No.
And that
cluster
gave
doesn't, but
each support, and we do the sports day. But when we did excursions, I think we just went individually. Our school went on its own. I don't remember we went to a few concerts at the Dean Newland Hall. We went to a few there, and the other schools in the cluster came as well. But we didn't really know that, the students didn't really know the kids from the other schools particularly, whereas the teachers obviously all did.
And in the Seven Hills Cluster at that stage, which schools do you recall were part of that for sports day or athletics day?
Well, there was the Newland, Dean Newland School, there was Mount Blowhard, Creswick North, there was us.
Did you compete against any other schools in like athletics and that?
We certainly did, and we beat them all. We would go to the Dean Newland Sports Association, and we were very, very proud of our skills in relay. And we used to train very, very much to get our skills really refined, and especially with passing the baton, so that when we got to the sports, our baton changes were very efficient and very quick, and we'd always win. So, and I would be barracking on the side, making sure the kids ran really fast. So it was good fun. But every year people would say, oh, not Invermay again. Not Invermay winning the relay again. But they won because they were good, and they were good because they practiced.
Did you compete against any other schools in like athletics and that?
Yes, we used to have inter-school sports, I think you would call it, and they were held at Bungaree because the district of Invermay was part of the Lee Creek Shire, so Bungaree was usually where we held the school sports. So it was between Bungaree, Invermay, Little Bendigo, Glen Park, all those sort of schools.
Right. And all of those schools that you mentioned still in operation and existence now.
That's good.
And our prep teacher, Mrs. Westlake, she taught at Bungaree Primary for many years before coming
Right,
here.
okay.
Yeah, lovely.
Did you compete against any other schools in like sports and that?
Yes, all the schools in the, what they call the Bungaree Shire then, which would have been Newland, Bungaree, Invermay, I'm just trying to think of a few others in around that area. They used to have the sports out at the Newland Oval. It used to be a sports day. And of course, all the schools, there'd probably be, I suppose there would have been probably about 8 schools. I think there was Millbrook and places like that as well. And they'd all compete out at the Newland Oval there. And I remember a few times there, our parents would come out there, they'd sneak away from work. Dad used to take a sickie sometimes and sneak away from work. And Reggie Cochran was the reporter and the photographer of the Ballarat Courier at the time. And he'd come out and take photos, and they'd all go ducking and weaving so they didn't get their faces in the paper, because they weren't supposed to be out there, especially at work. But things like that, they depended on the parents to help out. Yeah, so there would have been probably about 8 schools.
/ staff were there?
There were only about 16, 17 students and 1 teacher.
Now, any classroom assistants or integration staff, as we might call them now, anyone
don't-
that was a helper, or sometimes perhaps did mums or dads come in and help in the classroom? Do you recall?
No, I don't ever recall. No. I don't think it was ever big enough as a school to have extra help or anything. Perhaps over the years there were perhaps the teachers' college that was in Ballarat, and I think maybe there would be someone would come on
student teachers
work
of the law.
experience.
How many students and staff were here?
There was 2 full-time staff. I was part-time, I only worked till lunchtime. And Elka was the principal and the office lady. She did all of the admin work. And then we had occasional people that would come in, but just the 2 full-time, me part-time, and then from time to time, different people.
And
would
who
come.
were the teachers at that time, Robin, when you came?
Mrs. Gunn was the principal and the Prep 1-2 teacher, and Mr. Phillips, Peter Phillips, he was the 3, 4, 5, 6 teacher. And he also organised the concert at the end of the year. So that was his extra job to do. And we did performances, we did big stage shows with a few students. It was great fun.
For the tour, what do you think has changed in Invermay?
Well, I think there's an old phrase that I use, everything's changed, but nothing's new. And you could say, and then also you can reverse that around and say, everything's new, but nothing's
A lot of the yard looks different. There are lots more plants, lots more interesting areas, shade sails. The flower, there's a big flower you've got somewhere, I've noticed, that's sort of been drawn. Your fences are great. The path is terrific, lots of outdoor seating area, so it's terrific.
Everything. I think the only thing that I would ever recall from being here, this is the site that the school was on, and the hall and the church next door, and probably some of the old trees, original old.
In the yard, what do you think has changed or looks different?
There's no pine trees. that's a start. The yard it looks absolutely fabulous to what I remember it as.
We didn't have a yard.
We had a little old track over the back there, and everybody used to build billy carts, and during lunchtime we'd have a bit of a race down to the creek on the billy carts going down the hill. But other than that, there's a lot of old stumps around, cypress stumps, and we used to make believe our pirate ships and play with those, or you might have been playing hospitals or whatever, and you'd use the pine needles to make your rooms. You know, it was all imaginary stuff back then. And if you wanted to play doctors and nurses, there was a boxthorn bush down the bottom there. It used to have little thorns on it, so we used to give each other needles.
Any footies or soccer balls if you bought your own, or they might have had a little store of some here, Bob?
You brought your own football. Yeah, you brought your own football. You'd have a game of football out on the oval. Not that there's many there to play football, only kick to kick basically.
Is there a swing or a seesaw or anything? A bit of rope from the tree, a swing, or?
No, I can't remember any swings there, no.
Might fall off them.
Oh, there might have been what they call one of the long swings. It's got like a plank on the thing, and the whole thing goes backwards and forwards.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was one of those there somewhere, but I just can't think where it was. I reckon it might have been in front of the shelter sheds, to the side there. Yeah. Yeah, so that was a noisy sort of a thing, yeah.
So we had nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Well, this is only one swing, so there's fights to get on and get off.
Did you have camp? If so, where did you go?
Good point. Okay, camps. No, we didn't have camps, but we had swimming. And the other thing that we did do is at the end of each year, grade 6 went on an outing with the principal to celebrate their primary education graduation. I'd usually have either one parent or Mrs. Bell came when she joined the staff team, and 3 places we went were Bell's Beach, Torquay, for the day, Grampians walking for the day, and looking at the market gardens of Werribee South, where I taught the previous years, and the various boat areas of Werribee South, which now you would not recognise that place now because it's just been taken over by housing. You couldn't even recognise it. But so we did have these end of year excursions to celebrate graduation, but no camps.
Do you remember going on camps, Robert? Did they have a school camping program? And
They-
any camp stories or
Excuse
places that
me.
you visited?
We did have school camps, but because I lived on my own and I had animals that I was responsible for, I used to go and visit for the day. I didn't actually sleep over on the camps, but I'd go up, and I can remember many camps that we went to, and it was just so much fun. We went Rose's Gap. I think one funny story I've got, we went to the urban camp in Melbourne, and we caught the train down and we went to the zoo, and Mr. Phillips had a group of children just in front of my group that I had. I don't know, 4, 5 children. You were there that day, Mrs. Gunn. And what Mr. Phillips, he set a child up to come and stop me and distract me. So we were chatting for a moment as he went ahead around the corner and moved the sprinkler So I had my group and we walked around the corner and we were covered with the water from the sprinkler. And his group were waiting, watching, and they laughed their heads off at us. Fortunately, it was a hot day, but lots of fun. I mean, harmless, didn't hurt anybody, but always a bit of fun.
Did you have a camp? If so, where did you go?
We had lots of camps. We had a camp every year, and every year we went to a different spot, because I said that every year the camp was like my annual holiday, so I wanted to go to somewhere different every year. So initially we had a lot of our parents who came with us who actually did the cooking for the camp, and then after a while we decided that was too much for them, they were better to come and just join in. But places we went to were the Grampians, Halls Gap, Roses Gap, the Barmer Forest, the Little Desert, Queenscliff, Anglesea, Koroit, Barmer Forest, did I say that? Barmer Forest. So all over the place. Healesville was another one we went to, but there were lots of things that happened at camp, lots of fun. And we would take parents with us, and sometimes we had a lot of trouble with the parents because they misbehaved. You know, and the children were always so good, but it was their parents we had the trouble with, because the parents got up to things, you know. Once the children were put to bed at night time, then the parents would play up. And some of the things they would do was put cornflakes in the teachers' sleeping bags, or put flour in the teachers' sleeping bags. And Robert Fraser was one of the culprits who did most of the naughty stuff. And Robert's no longer with us, sadly, but he came on every school camp, and he was very, very naughty. Good fun, but very naughty. And so one year they actually even dismantled the corner of my bed, my bunk, and so once I was in the bunk, the bed capsized and my head was in the corner of the room and my legs were up in the air, and someone had to come and save me and help me. But they were all laughing because I think Robert had done it and had set them all up and say, come and listen to see what happens to Elko. So we had lots of fun. But on school camp we also had our parents make slices and cakes, because when we were on camps we did a lot of walking, and so while we were doing the walking the children would get hungry, so we'd have to take morning tea with us. So we'd take a mixture of slices and cakes. So everyone who went on camp had to bring an ice cream container full of goodies, and then before we went on a walk, we'd take a selection out of each container. So we had a variety of slices and we'd share those out, and they were really popular. If we really loved a particular slice, then that parent was told next year they had to make the same slice. And if the teachers particularly liked a slice, the teachers would say, we need one for teachers only, so we can have it after the kids go to bed. We used to also make another mixture of nuts and dried apricots, dried fruits, sultanas, Smarties, and that was called scroggin. And it was just a mixture of stuff, and when we went on walks we'd take a container full of that and we'd just share out a handful to children and they could eat it as they were walking along. So camps were good fun. I'll just share with you what funny thing that happened at one camp. We went to the urban camp in Melbourne and we had to really watch our students so we didn't lose them getting on and off trams, and our parents were trained really well. They'd always count them and let each other know if we had all the children. We went to see Santa at Myers, and one of our little prep girls was very good at telling jokes, and so she was sitting on Santa's knee and she decided to tell him lots of blonde jokes, and Santa thought it was hilarious, so he was laughing so much and she was just saying, Santa, you're not listening to me. So that was really good fun and really interesting. So camps were a really special time. We always had a camp booklet, and every year children would go home. They'd be put into a team while they were on camp, and each team had different jobs to do on camps. We'd do award points. Children would wear a badge, and the badge would say which team they were on, and the colour of the team. And on the back of the badge, it would say when they were on kitchen duty, when they had to set the table, when they had to do different things. And so they always knew what they were meant to do. And it was good fun, really good fun. And so a lot of the children learnt a heap of things going on school camps, really, truly. And it was such an exciting time. And we would take prep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Do you still take preps to camp?
No, we take grade 3, 4, 5, 6s.
What is wrong with your teachers? You need to take them all. My goodness. Preps must go to camp. Although, let me tell you, one year I had a group of boys, and I don't know whether it was when they were in prep or grade 1. We were at the Roses Gap camp, and they were all told to bring their rubber boots. And there was a lake there that was quite shallow. And I said to them, when you go into that lake, do not go in too far, because the water will go over the top of your boots and you'll get wet feet. Well, did you think they listened to me? No. So after one day at camp, I was sharing the hut with these boys who were just dynamite, and my first night at camp was spent washing all their dirty socks and their tracksuit pants and getting them dry so that they had something to wear the next day. They were hard work, those boys. I won't say what the names were, but they would know if they watched this. We also had another day at that camp where we just bought a brand new video camera, and our principal at the time, he was really trying very hard to learn how to use it, and he was forgetting about supervising the students well enough, and he forgot about the fact that we don't really want children to get their clothes wet. And we got to a waterfall, and he said to the children, why don't you go up on the top there and then slide down in the water and see how far you can come in the water? And I had already said to the children, you are not to get in the water. You are not to get wet. And I was at the end of the walk, and by the time I got there were about 10 boys sliding down the waterfall on their bottoms, dripping wet. And the principal was filming them. Do you think I was happy?
No.
Because I'd already spent one night washing and drying clothes, so this was another night where I was going to be washing and drying clothes. But anyway, it was all good fun.
Have a camp? If so, where did you go? We didn't have camps, anything like the children have today. We didn't have any of those activities.
Did you have camp? If so, where did you go?
No. We went probably once a month. That was probably in the 62, 63, that. We went over to Miners Rest and be on I think it was on a Wednesday morning. We'd be back here by Wednesday lunchtime and just to socialise with other kids. That was it, yeah. No, we didn't have any camps.
You were right.
Students and staff were here throughout your years.
Yeah, okay. I think I enrolled 34 students while I was here, I think, around about that, and that was wonderful to have new students coming to the school. Some of them came from Ballarat because they heard of the reputation of what a great school Invermay was. And so, but when I left, we would have been around the vicinity of 35 students, and when I came, I think we were about 20. Yeah, so it was a fair percentage growth, but I always said that Invermay is one of the best kept secrets in the best schools around, and I still have that view.
That's the opening line on our school website, front page, one of Ballarat's best kept secrets.
Oh, good. Well, there you go.
I was 97 or 96. I just can't quite remember now. No, it could have been early 96. Yeah, 96, definitely.
You come here.
Came in 83 and I stayed for 17 years and I left at the end of 99, before the turn of the century. I could have stayed here forever. I would have been happy to stay here forever, but I had to make the decision about would I be prepared to move to do more learning. And I think some of that move, I think some of the learning I did I could have done without learning. Because being an assistant principal in a bigger school and being a principal in a bigger school is sometimes not as much fun as working in a little wonderful school like this.
Sienna.
What year did you come here? In May?
What, love?
What year did you come to Invermay? 1945. Yeah, 1945 you started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started in 1958, was it? You had me down there, 58.
A long time ago, darling.
We were
And what did the classroom setup and structure look like then, do you recall? How
We
many
had
classrooms?
2 classrooms, and that was all. A staff room and a little tiny office, which is just a cupboard, just a little room. And outside toilets, as I remember when I first came. We didn't have the hall wasn't here, and just really playground and yard. During the time here, the new playground was put out the front, but other than that, there wasn't very, very much here. Just, you know, the 2 staff, prep 1, 2, one room, and 3, 4, 5, 6, the other room.
Any other ed support? No other ed support at that time?
There was a couple of teachers that came in, but I'm not sure if they did in the beginning. We had French, Pam Coughlin, she came, but I don't know if that was that right in the very beginning?
No.
And then we had a reading support teacher, she came later, just for 1 or 2 days, and you know, not for the whole day, just for a few hours.
And you were the only integration aide at that time?
Yeah.
idea. How many classrooms were there?
There were four classrooms, and all we had was the classrooms. We had outside we had old toilets, and we had a little shed that was sort of like an art room, which had really old tables, wooden tables. I've actually still got the tables at my house because they were throwing them out, and they were long benches that you could put things underneath. And so we used to do painting out there, but I did a lot of artwork in my own classroom because I liked doing art. Yeah. So there was just the old shed that we used as an art room, and it was really pretty old. And then I was, while I was here, all the parents worked together and built the hall, and they'd come every weekend and work together because we had lots of skilled people. We had an architect, we had plumbers, we had carpenters, and so they all worked together and spent the weekend here. And so I'd arrive at school on Monday morning and the bins would be full of McDonald's or fish and chip papers or cans of Coke or beer bottles, because that's what they were doing on the weekend. You know, they'd all work here, but they'd have to eat, and so there'd be food, and they'd be getting takeaways, and so all the empty wrappings were in the bins. But they did that for probably 4 months, and worked every weekend for 4 months to build the hall. So it was a good sacrifice, and they had a great achievement then. So with that hall, then there were new toilets as part of that as well. So do you still have use those toilets?
Yep, they're the toilets that the kids have. Yeah, same ones.
Good. Yeah. So once we had the big hall, one end of it we made into like an art room, And when we had the back to Invermay celebrations, I don't know what year that was. It was probably
96, I think it
No,
was.
96.
96, 97.
Yeah, it could be. Well, we had all the celebrations in that hall, and so we sometimes did concerts in there as well. But generally, our concerts were held over the road.
How many classrooms were there?
One.
Yeah, when I started, the old school had a hall and a classroom, so you could divide it into 2 classrooms and a porch. And when the new school, which was relocatable, was put on here, it was just the one room. That's all there was.
Thank you. How did you get to school?
I'd walked across the paddock. Yeah, mainly across the paddock. It was probably quicker, and we knew where we were going.
Always kangaroos back then. We look forward to seeing the kangaroos over the back fence.
There's no kangaroos then. Occasionally we'd see a snake when we're getting over the fence and things like that, so we have to be careful. Riding our bikes, we did have bikes, and there was a very narrow country road to get here, so we would ride our bikes sometimes to school.
The monitor.
Yes,
Duster. Yeah.
we got yelled at one stage because the teacher was sick for a week. So we had to ride our bikes from out here down to MacArthur Street School. And by the time we got there, they'd finished their assembly, and they weren't happy because we were late.
Here's the register of donor.
Did you have any school roles like school captain, vice captain, treasurer, president, secretary?
That's now. Being when I came here, relatively small school, I suppose the main thing that I was encouraging is the responsibility that grade 5s and 6s had of setting an example for the younger ones, conducting them in itself as a way where they showed maturity, and not just about themselves. And so we didn't have a school captain per se at that time, but we had lots of jobs that people did, clean-up jobs and working bee jobs that we did, particularly in the garden. Golf course responsibility we had. All we did is from that front fence right down the back fence, we had 9, like pitch and putt. And that became a very serious event. The young ones took that very, very seriously. Did I ever have a problem or an argument? I can't recall.
Did you have any school jobs that the students did? Like a school captain or something like that?
Yeah, there were captains, and there was the house, the two houses. 2 houses? Did we have 2 houses?
I don't remember that.
I can't remember that. I can't remember any specific students that were, because it was such a little school. We only had 38 at the most, so everybody worked together. And if there was an issue or a problem out in the yard, say if one of the little preps had hurt themselves, 4 or 5 kids would come and someone would stay with the child, and others would come, and we just worked together as a team, the whole school. From the big kids, they looked after the little ones, and then if we didn't see something or we needed to know something, they would just work as a team. They just did it. They just naturally knew to look after each other, and because we were like a family, it was wonderful.
Damon, on to you. Yeah. Did you have any school roles like school captain, treasurer, vice captain?
I don't think we did. I could be wrong, but I don't recall anyone being a school captain. No, nothing like that. They might have done it after I left, but not while we were there. Not that I can remember. Yeah.
Did you have any school roles?
Roles such as captain or jobs or tasks, duties.
I don't remember having any official role, but I remember I used to look after the little ones. I used to make sure they were all right at school and things like that. So it was an unofficial role that I had.
What other landmarks near your school, like the CFA shed and that?
Well, the CFA shed I think was there at that time. We over where the car park is now, where all those gum trees are, and there were more there that have been now removed. But there used to be an old building there, which I think it may have been an original old school or an original old hall, and that was actually a really interesting building, and they demolished it, and I'm not sure why, but it had that lovely, beautiful old dusty wood smell when you walked into it, and I remember when it was demolished, and it was a bit sad to see it go. So, and I'm not sure if that was in its original location or whether it had been shifted there from somewhere else.
I have a hunch, Elka, that the building that we're in now, 1965, was landed here. The one you're speaking of was moved from where we are now out into what is our car park now, and it was used. It was almost like a multi-purpose room, or was it?
Yes,
that you guys for different activities, and they had a new building here, which is the one we've got the plaque up for 1965, our current staff room. So I believe you're right. It may have been the original school building for a number of years. They've moved it in the car park just to keep it as a multi-purpose area. And we had the building that our staff room is now, an art room that was arrived in 1965 as a new facility. So just out in the middle of the car park where we park now, there was a building there for a number of years that Alpha speaks of. Originally a schoolhouse, then a multi-purpose room, but they did demolish it eventually. So
and I remember being sad the day it went. I felt, why are they doing that? It shouldn't be going, it should stay there. But anyway, another interesting thing that is not there now, out in this car park here, there used to be these big rubbish skips, and for the community to upload their cardboard and bottles and so forth, and it was just terrible because it attracted rats. So we could.
What other things were near the school?
Well, the only thing was that the church was here, which is still here as a house now, and the hall, which was between the school and the church.
CFA shed or
there was a
or any
CFA,
community facilities,
none of
barbecue or anything?
No, none of the community centre was there. And I just can't recall where the CFA was, but there was a CFA because that was always a big, once a year there was a big meeting of the CFAs, and there'd be sort of like activities, and they'd compete between one another, the different brigades. And I remember as a kid going to the different places, landmarks around those sort of areas to see that. But I can't recall there being a shed, not like there is today.
Do you remember any of the rules that you had?
Oh, I think they were much the same as what you'd have now. You would have to, you weren't allowed to chew chewing gum. And although I don't know that when I started you had to wear hats when you were playing in the two, like the end of the year and the beginning of the year, those two terms. I don't think it was compulsory to wear hats then. I'm just trying to think what else might have been different then. Always good manners and, the basic things that you would do now. We had a uniform, so if we went on an excursion, you had to wear.
What rules did you have?
I don't remember ever having rules at school because there were only, at the time I was here, there were probably only 16 to 17 students. So it was a very small school, and So I don't think we really had rules set out and written down on paper, because the teacher was just like a very small class he had to look after.
Do you remember any school rules?
School rules?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
What were the rules?
I remember a lot of school rules, and a lot of them were Monday morning would be a spelling bee, and because it was a single classroom, there's a little heater, a little chip heater, wood heater in the corner, so you'd have to go out through there and you'd have to either have a spelling bee or multiplication tables. You had to know, simple as that. Rules around the ground, you had to clean up, around the ground, clean up in the classrooms when you, what's known, no talking. There's no talking whatsoever. You found the blackboard duster at the head. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of all the other rules. I've probably broken every last one of them, but yeah, so yeah, that was mainly, you had to keep quiet and yeah, you needed to ask him to put your hand up and get the teacher's attention, and if he wanted to come over and see you, he'd come over and see you.
Bob and Edie, was it a big deal for somebody to get the strap?
Oh yes, everyone
And
was.
they would do it in the classroom and
Yes.
everyone watching to get,
Yeah.
yep.
And it hurt.
Oh, I bet it did.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, everyone was watching.
They were cruel. I reckon.
This is
And a ruler, Edie? The strap, was it a timber ruler or was it a belt? Or
Just the old ruler. You just give you a whack.
On the knuckles,
No,
on the hand.
that way.
Yeah. We used to get the 3-foot blackboard ruler, they used to call them.
yeah, a meter ruler? Yep.
Up back of the legs.
Oh no, he kept his special ruler. Like, what's the big one? No.
And do you think
They
it,
bring that in, you can always put a book in the back of your pants.
was it something that, was it pretty rare? Or was it something that nearly every day someone would get the strap? You think it'd be nearly every day, or no, it was pretty rare occurrence, do you think, Edie?
Yeah, it wasn't that often. But the boys, when I went to botanical school, they had a strap. Well, that strap used to disappear. And they used to have these vents, for air coming in,
Yep.
sort of, with the tin and down would go the strap to the bottom of that.
And then the principal couldn't find the strap.
Yeah.
If the boys had been up to no good.
Yeah.
One way getting out of it.
No, it was just on the Monday mornings, if you had something silly through the week, one of my cousins was always in trouble. He used to be climbing trees there getting the bird's eggs. Then you'd wonder why if you went to the toilet, you'd have to take a broom with you because the magpie would want to get him all the time. He'd pinch its eggs.
any technology in the classrooms?
No, not really. I don't think there was. I think that was the next position that I had. We had iPads and things, but not here. It was just a little bit before. There was no whiteboards, or it was all.
We had Apple IIe's and we used to play Logo on,
That's right, yeah.
and we thought that was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we had an infant typewriter.
It was like the first Apple desktop computer.
I don't know that I even did any typing. I know I used to help with the photocopying, but I think that was the only technology that and maybe the odd fax. But that was all I used to do.
See, an infant typewriter was a typewriter with bigger print, and that was, to have one of those was really wonderful. But then once we got a photocopier that enlarged, that was just heaven.
Yeah. Spent a lot of my life staying at the photocopier, waiting for it to come through and moving the paper, doing all of that. Good fun.
Don't.
What class materials did you have?
Probably much the same as you've got now, really, I would think. I don't think that's really changed, other than the technology. It'd be just the same, pens, pencils, erasers, rulers, paper, books. Do you have, are there blackboards? You don't have
Whiteboards,
You've
yeah.
got whiteboards
Use the
now.
whiteboards every day, and
Yeah.
generally a screen, you know, and your laptop, and you'll have a lot of the information we may have written on the board,
Yeah.
the whiteboard.
Yeah.
A lot of that might be pre-prepared, you know, with visuals or graphics in a slideshow or and shown on the
Right.
screen. But still use the whiteboard every day
See,
as a teacher.
we were blackboards,
Yeah.
weren't we?
What was the most technically advanced thing you had? Like a computer or TV or anything?
The first thing we got was an Apple IIe computer, and we used to play Logo on it or something, and we thought that was wonderful, having a computer. But I can tell you the best thing that we ever got was a photocopier. It was a black and white photocopier. And then when we got the next upgraded version, with it you could enlarge or you could reduce the size of things. Wow, that was just fantastic, because I would then use that to make school magazines or the camp booklets. So if I had a picture in a magazine or something, and I would be able to make it smaller and then use it in my layout. So having a photocopier was the best thing. And then we started making, every term I'd make a school magazine, and it would go home to all the families at the end of term, with activities for the children to do over the holidays. And having a photocopier was heaven. It was just the best thing. But then we got computers, but we didn't use computers as much as what you use now. It was a bit of a novelty.
What class materials did you have?
Sorry?
What class materials did you have?
Well, we used to go down to Burke's School Supplies, and we'd buy up all the stuff we needed, especially art stuff. But we were very good at collecting recyclable things to make things out of. So we'd collect wool and we'd collect materials, and we had, in my classroom, I had coloured tubs that were full of resources that we could use. And my husband then had a picture framing business, and he would have cut-offs of the card, and that was fantastic to use for drawing. So we did use a lot of recyclable things, which was great to have.
I wanted to see, Joe, if we could bunch the next two together. Do you think?
What was the most technical thing you had? And what class materials did you have?
I think we had a book and a pencil and a pen. And that was a pen with a nib on it and an inkwell, and you would learn to write with ink. You had to be very careful because it would block, just spread so easily the ink. Do you ever use those?
Trish, I have, yeah. We actually had to get a pen license when I went to school, and when you received your license, you were able to get we called them calligraphy pens, but had the ink. Yeah, something we look forward to. Trish, just on CJ's question there, test of memory, but do you think you might have had just one workbook per se, and you would have recorded, any and all work in one workbook, or might you have had an English book and a mathematics book in your desk?
I don't think
Any memories?
So. No, I think we probably would have had a couple of books, but no, there wasn't the resources that there are today. So, the teacher would write on the blackboard and we would copy it and do the work.
Did you have any technology at school?
Any?
Technology.
The only technology we had was a projector and little reels of tape. And the teacher put it on there and it told a story of different things. And then go to the next frame and the next frame, and that was ours. That's all we had.
Just play it up on a blank wall.
Yes,
We-
yeah.
On
If
the
you're
blank
lucky,
wall?
you had the blank wall, or you might put a sheet or something up there and project it off the sheet. Yeah. Towards the end there, but before I left Invermay, they got what they call a copying machine, and used to wind the thing around there to, I don't know what they put in it, but boy, geez, it used to just about send you out of your tree. Highland.
It was plenty of chemical, wasn't it? And
yes, yeah.
you'd smell your sheets when they
Yeah.
came to you, your worksheets or your act off the printer.
Yeah,
You could smell the ink and the chemical on them.
just about put you out. Knock you out, didn't he?
Who's next up?
Thank you. What class materials did you have?
What?
What class materials?
Class.
Class materials, books, pencils, any
No, we had-
atlases, anything you recall in class.
We had atlases and dictionaries. We had those. But most of the books, you had like a little library type of thing, and you go and get a book if you wanted to read it and all that. You had books there, yeah. But it was, you had to read them, so yeah.
Was the teacher's blackboard sacred, or could kids grab a piece of chalk and go up and
No.
show how to solve an equation, or
No.
write something, or do your handwriting? Or no, that was the teacher's domain only, the blackboard.
Exactly, yeah, you did put it on the blackboard. There, get the ruler.
Depending what you, yeah, that's the same as us with the, when we did that, we got into awful strife.
Really?
Oh, they went to our fathers and we had to write to the teacher, apologise to him. It was this other, I could draw. That's something I could do. And we drew all these things this day, it was raining. And of course, Shirley Wilkerson, she put underneath, this is the teacher. Wow, poor teacher. Yeah, he was not happy. Yeah, we got into big strife for that one.
In amongst our historical records, we've got the inspector's report book.
Oh, gosh,
And
they
this is-
wouldn't have put that in there, would they?
This is the inspector who used to come and check in on the teacher and principal, and
That's right.
they would do a report card in this book on the principal and how well the school neat and tidy, how well are they teaching, what's the instruction like, and they would definitely make comment on the neatness and tidiness of the blackboard and the teacher's handwriting on the blackboard. And the teachers and head teachers would have been pretty upset if a little person came along with chalk and scribbled over this or scribbled over that, because one of their key duties was to have a nice, organised and orderly blackboard with plenty of information, letters and sounds and alphabet and numbers and maths equation, everything in place and ordered and organised up there, yeah. And the inspector wrote pages and pages and pages about whether the grass was cut, whether the blackboard was organised, whether the kids were polite and sitting up straight and being good listeners. And it was a report card on the principal, and they would get a visit every year and a report written in this book on how the principal was going at Invermay Primary School. So the
I hope you
inspector
didn't
worked
write
for the
in there
education
what we
department.
did.
Haven't spotted your name yet, Edie.
You come around and talk to the kids as well, see how things are going. Because that road runs up, used to run straight through. You could always hear cars coming down. So as kids, you could look. And of course, back in those days, the health inspector, or the suppose you call them a doctor now, they used to come around and check the kids, you know, for nits and all this sort of immunisations, which meant you had to get needles. And one of the ones that used to come out, used to have a Volkswagen Combi van. So the engine, you knew, you could hear that for miles. So when we heard it coming down the road, we used to all nick off and be over the creek, up the trees. Yeah, they couldn't find us. Yeah, teachers weren't happy on that one.
Nah,
Definitely not happy.
where are the kids? What kids? Robin,
Yeah.
question we've
Yeah,
asked
that's
over the
done for
generations.
something.
Do you have any memories of any class pets or school pets or
I can tell you a story about
official or unofficial?
a rabbit, and we got this rabbit, and it was the children took it home they were assigned the rabbit for the week, and then that someone would have it during the holidays, and the rabbit arrived just as I was leaving to go home on a Friday, and I had to wait all weekend to find out what the children called the rabbit. I thought we could have done better than that. It was called Fluffy. And Mr. Phillips, I said to him, I said, honestly, I said, Fluffy, couldn't we have done better than Fluffy? And he, who was a bit of a clown, he thought the rabbit should have been called Khaleesi, which I thought was wonderful. See, that was the virus that they used,
the
Khaleesi virus. And I thought that was a fabulous name for the little rabbit, which was never going to be killed because it was loved and cherished and adored. But I thought Fluffy. And I said to the
It was a
kids,
bit like COVID for rabbits back then. It wasn't. It was a virus that just spread around the
Yeah,
country, and
yeah.
rabbits were turning up dead everywhere. It was one that they were spreading and passing to each other.
that's
The
quite a
rabbits, the
pretty name,
Khaleesi
isn't it?
virus.
Khaleesi,
Yeah.
don't you think? Better than Fluffy. I mean, it was white and it was fluffy.
Better than Mixo too.
He thought of that. He thought of that too. That was another one. But he. So you're getting to know Mr. Phillips without even meeting him. But I think that was the only one we had while I was here was Fluffy.
We had Snake.
I not really mentioned this question, but did you have a class pet? Like you had Minky, but did you have any other pets?
Yeah, we had Minky, we had the budgies, we had the tortoise, and we also had a rabbit at one stage.
Poss.
And Poss, yeah. And we had the rabbit at one stage, and he'd go home with someone every night, and I'll never forget.
Did you have a class pet? No, we didn't have any pets in the school, but occasionally people would bring pets from home to show the others, like a lamb or something like that.
What were your school hours, and did you come Monday to Friday?
Yes, Monday to Friday, 9 till 3:30, I think.
Do you remember using this bell over here?
No, I don't believe I was ever allowed to be near the bell. No, I don't think there was ever a need for me to ring the bell. Did you? Yeah, well, I suppose that was. I think we had electronic bell, didn't we?
No, we used to
You used to use
the
that?
bell.
Yeah, no, I've never used the bell.
There's never any shortage of kids volunteering. Can I ring the bell? Can I ring the bell? But we still use it 4 times a day.
Wonderful.
So 9 o'clock and at the end of morning play and lunch play and afternoon play. And yeah, the little kids are always hitting the yard duty teacher up. Can I ring the bell? Can I ring the bell? We're just trying to create a bit of a timeline as to how far back it goes, and it was definitely here in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We're not sure how far back, and in the 70s the handle was replaced, and I had it replaced again in 2013, the handle. But in the 70s, it was old and...
Did you keep the original handle?
No, but it's split and fallen apart, so...
That's a shame.
But it was replaced in the 70s itself.
Okay.
But we're trying to get a date, on a timeline on how old the main piece of the bell is. So,
is there any marks on the bell itself? No. See, otherwise you could probably.
But just through memories, students that were here in the 50s definitely remember
the bell.
And in the 70s, getting it replaced. Refurbished.
Well, when I was here, we actually didn't have to do yard duty.
Good boss.
I mean, we were.
Need to.
Oh, you didn't need to.
We didn't
The kids
really
were so
need to.
good.
They'd come and tell us. But if it was a warm day, we'd go outside and sometimes if you have your coffee or your cup of soup, you're not allowed to do that anymore. So a lot of things have changed for safety reasons, and certainly the yard duty. There was no issue of danger because everyone had everyone's back.
The odd snake on a warm day.
Odd snake on a warm day. That was.
Thank you, Justin.
One thing you may remember is our school bell.
Yes.
And we've been bringing our school bell to share and reintroduce to many of our former students and staff that we've been interviewing. And it's been 24 years, I guess, since you've rang the school bell.
I'd say so.
We still ring it 4 times a day, 9 o'clock to come in, and 11:30 to end morning recess, 1:45 the end of lunch, and 2:45 the end of afternoon play. We did have our handle reinstated some 11 years ago, but from the people that we've been speaking to, and it's been had a couple of handles, one in the 70s and one in the early 2000s that we're aware of replaced, but the bell itself, it's had a refurb as well in the 80s.
Wow.
But it's still here now, and it dates back to the 1950s. We're desperately keen to see if anyone can predate it before the 50s, the early
Wow.
50s, but certainly students in the 50s and staff in the 70s and 90s and 2000s remember this as a daily part of their time at Invermay, and we still use it now. So I think it's high time you've had a ring after
Well,
24 years and let the kids know it's time to come to school at Invermay.
It's the grip's so good on it, isn't it? It's so good.
All right, kids, it's time to come back to school in Mrs. Music's class. Now, Trish, along with our beautiful trees on the front fence line, another item that's synonymous with our school in more recent times is this school bell. And we've dated it back to the 1970s. It was definitely here in the 1970s, and it's been refurbished a couple of times. We still use it every day, every play, to wrap up playtime and to let the kids know it's time to come back to class. Do you recall a handbell when you were here at school in the mid-50s?
I don't know whether it would be the same one, but I certainly recall a bell, and I think we were given the job of a monitor, so you would ring it when school was over,
Yes.
or when you finished your break.
Okay, well, this may well be the one. Mr. John Mooney, who was principal at Invermay in 1971-72, one of his tasks was to get it refurbished at that time. So we certainly do believe in the 70s it was an older bell. So it may well be the one that you used to ring occasionally
Could be.
to end the school play or the school day. How about you give it a ring for old time's sake? Thanks, Trish, and thanks for coming back. Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And helping us out with Invermay past and present. We look forward to seeing you at our
Do you remember using the bell over there?
the
Yes.
famous bell. Do you want to go and grab
Yes.
it for Edie? Do you want to grab it for Edie and Bob? We're interested in trying to track how far back this school bell goes. The
Yeah.
hand bell.
It was definitely here when I was there.
Yeah.
I can remember the bell.
So we had the handle replaced here in just one of my first jobs here was getting the handle replaced, but the original old brass handbell, we still use it 4 times a day, every day. It's our school bell.
Yep.
And
Everybody liked that bell.
Yeah, we interviewed
Especially the
John
teachers.
Mooney, who was principal here in the early 70s. He had it refurbished in the 70s when he was here as principal. So he said it was really old then in the 70s, and going back to the other students in the 50s who recall it as well, Bob.
Yeah.
We're not sure exactly how far it goes back, but Edie, do you remember having a handbell? And
Yeah, I'm sure it was similar to that. It
Yeah.
wasn't that.
yeah, the handle may be different, but certainly we place it. It was really old in the early 70s. Mr. Mooney said so. He wouldn't be surprised if it was 40 or 50 years old in the 70s.
The kids are up the tree, so you can imagine how we rang the bell.
I think it had a different gunner. But yeah, no, I reckon that's, yes. There's a bit of age about that one.
Absolutely.
Cast, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I reckon you better give it a ring,
What a
Bob.
shame.
Give it a ring, Edie.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Give it a. We still use it every day at the start of the school day and recess. Do you want to give it a ring, Edie?
Yeah, I'll give it
For old
a-
time's sake, you probably did 80 years ago in the 40s.
Thanks, darling.
Well played.